Well, the Sharks failed to get a win this week despite starting the year strong. We'll turn to the games and see how the Sharks found ways to lose. I also check out how Graf has been doing since he's been called up to the Sharks and the Sharks scoring woes. Is this the Sharks' worst scoring slump of the season? All this and more on the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. Welcome. It is episode 13, and I'd like to thank you for listening. Wherever you are and whatever you're listening from, I appreciate you joining me here today. So, as the teaser said, the Sharks had a really tough week. They lost all 3 of their games, and on top of that, they had a lot of trouble scoring goals. You could say that this week was more about the goaltending, as Georgiev was unstoppably good for the first 2 games of the week, and on the other side of it, for the Minnesota game, Marc-Andre Fleury just was like lights out amazing, and is probably his last game in the Shark Tank for his career. So it was kind of fitting the way he kind of went away from he left the Shark Tank basically. But yeah, the whole week seemed like it was a lot more about the goaltenders. And on top of that, the Sharks seemed to have trouble scoring. So today we're going to kind of break down just how the Sharks' scoring slump has been going. And spoiler alert, they are in a scoring slump right now compared to other times of the season. We're going to break down just how that has gone. And also going to take a look at Colin Graf to see how he's been doing since he's joined the San Jose Sharks. But first, we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to actually get into the games first, and then we're going to get into the other stories of the week, and then we'll probably break down, just take a peek into the Barracuda a little bit, and obviously we're going to finish the episode with the scheduled win-loss. So without further ado, let's just tear into the games. And the first game of the week, Vegas is visiting San Jose on Tuesday night. Georgiev will be making the start for the San Jose Sharks. Being surprised, we figured that Warsofsky is still trying to do that 1A, 1B kind of thing. Askarov did have a hot week the week before, so I guess, Warsofsky didn't want to keep that going. He wanted to make sure Georgiev was getting some starts, so he would actually make the start for this game. And he starts off very well. He made 2 huge pad saves early in the game. Unfortunately, Stone would score a little bit after that, but it was actually Kostin and Wenberg that were near Carlson on the board with a puck. No one takes the body, and he ends up getting it out to Pietrangelo, who sees Stone available for a breakaway. Now, this is kind of on CC. He's kind of caught flat-footed. He can't really... He doesn't even know if he should actually attack Stone. He kind of is skating off in a weird way, and he doesn't have enough acceleration or speed to try and catch Stone, so Stone just flies by on a breakaway, and he ends up scoring past Georgiev. Georgiev should have gotten that one. I know on top of it, mostly it's CC who should have been defending his guy better. But that was a goal that Georgiev probably could have saved if he was a little bit better. He's a little bit too out of his net there. I would say it's a little bit his fault, but also CC's fault in that one. A little bit after that, Whitecloud would score, and this is on Mac Medulin in the defensive lapse. He lost the puck in the neutral zone, and what happens is that Graf doesn't really challenge Whitecloud. He kind of gives Whitecloud enough space to, just try and get a good shot on net, and Graf is trying to use his stick instead of his body. So instead of Graf actually trying to box him out and try and give him less space to shoot, he kind of just awkwardly uses his stick and doesn't know what to do. I can't really blame him because he's still young and trying to figure things out. So Celebrini tries to bail him out, and he's using his speed to try and stick lift from behind, but Whitecloud ends up sniping it past Georgiev, who goes right through the 5-hole. Kind of a loose goal there too. I think Georgiev should have had that one. Again, 2 that you could say defensive lapses, but Georgiev, honestly, those 2 were really ugly ones for him. He should have gotten it, and that's just a bad start for the Sharks right off the bat. Graf did make up for it with a couple of good chances. He had 1 good shot on goal, but it was saved by Samsonov, and his second chance, it was a great pass from Celebrini where he'd get a backhand shot from an angle from the pass from Celebrini. So Graf kind of making up for it with his offensive flair. But yeah, at this point, Georgiev would have to hold down the fort. Vegas is pounding the Sharks with some shots, but Georgiev is actually starting to turn things around and looking pretty good, stopping the Sharks from their mistakes. Goodrow did get a good breakaway chance later in the period, but it would be stopped. Then a little bit later, Eklund would score for the San Jose Sharks. It was a nice tic-tac-toe play. Graf was in the bumper position, and he had a great pass from Wenberg from the point, and he would just feed it to Eklund, who was right in the slot. Easy goal for Eklund to score. It was nice to get him. He's scoring a little bit more after a little bit of a slump. But yeah, so Graf kind of makes up for that mistake from before by making that nice offensive play. It's just it's kind of an easy play. Obviously, they practiced it out, but the fact that Graf put it out perfectly without any mistakes or fumbling the puck, I would say that's a win for the Sharks book there. Later in the game, Georgiev would make a save. Vegas would pull their goalie at the end of the second period, and they would have a power play. So with 3 seconds left, Vegas tries to make this take advantage of this by making it 6-on-4. So they would win the face-off, and there's a chance for Olofsson to snipe it, pass off a one-time shot, but Georgiev would save it just as the buzzer sounded. It was a beautiful glove save. Unfortunately, next period, Olofsson would get a second chance to make up for that one. And the Sharks are doing a decent job of boxing Vegas out, but Eichel draws 3 Sharks towards him, and basically Olofsson's completely free on the other side of the net. No one's covering him. But Eichel does make a beautiful pass. Like a credit to him. He threads through everybody, finds Olofsson, and Olofsson snipes it top corner from the other side. Georgiev, this one I can't put it on him. It's a wide open net. Georgiev's kind of focused on the Eichel because everyone's focused on Eichel, and then the shot goes in. I think some defensemen should have been focused on Olofsson. Obviously, they're kind of looking too much at Eichel, stargazing basically. So yeah, after that, Olofsson scores. That would make it, I believe, it would be 3-2 after that, or 3-1, sorry. And then later in the game, Sharks are on the attack. Eichel gets a good chance, a good shot on net. The puck made a funny bounce, and Stone sees Eichel pinching. He makes a one-touch pass to Eichel in the neutral zone, and Eichel has a breakaway, but Georgiev robs him. And a little bit later, Liljegren would score, and Olofsson would actually be the one who's looks pretty bad here because he ends up hooking Liljegren. He goes in the box. So Liljegren would end up scoring with the Sharks power play. They're basically cycling around the Vegas zone. Liljegren snipes it top corner. It was a beautiful shot. It would make it 3-2, and the Sharks fans kind of getting hope that it's one of those late period comeback types of games. So the Sharks are still in it. They're despite the fact that Georgiev let those 2 goals in the beginning of the game, the Sharks are playing decent hockey here. Nothing outstanding, but Georgiev is keeping them in it to try and get a comeback to win there, and everyone's got hope that they're going to do it. So yeah, you continue shutting out the door. You dust off some shots, like a good wrister from Hannafin after the San Jose Sharks goal. So the Sharks are getting confidence here. They're thinking, okay, we might be able to come back here. Momentum's on our side here. Even Celebrini had a good shot on Samsonov, but it would be saved. But the Sharks would end up falling short. They would pull Georgiev with 2 minutes to go. Stone would go for an empty net. He misses the shot, and Celebrini picks up the puck, and he's trying to get an exit the zone and try and get a rush going with a few seconds left. Unfortunately, he would cough up the puck to Stone, who's like a master of the takeaway. So you can't really blame Celebrini. Again, rookie figuring this stuff out. He's trying to get it back, but Stone gets possession. He finds Hurdle open, who would pot the empty net goal. The Sharks lose despite despite Georgiev playing really well, stopping some shots. But yeah, they would end up losing 4-2 from the empty net goal. And yeah, the Sharks could have been a little bit better. They weren't terrible per se. Defensively, they were okay, but they were a little bit flat, obviously, in terms of the goal scoring. Georgiev, those first 2 goals, he wishes he could have back, I bet. He played well despite all that. The rest of the game, he played very, very well. He kept the Sharks in it. It could have been a worse score, to be honest. Another thing to point out was the Hobie line. So Warsofsky playing Graf, Smith, and Celebrini recently during this time. They looked electric, but there were those rookie mistakes. So I think later in the week, you'll see that Warsofsky does split those guys up. They're a little bit young, a little bit green. I think it'd be better that, even for Celebrini, he's been kind of in a cold streak lately. I don't think having the 2 young guys playing with him is as beneficial for him as it is for the other guys, Smith and Graf. But yeah, so they're kind of fun to watch, but there's a lot of mistakes, and I think that's what we'll learn, that they get split off moving forward. And yeah, the overall San Jose held onto the game against an elite Vegas team who really just was more dominant, but they really were flat offensively. They tried. Shots on goal were 42-21 for Vegas. The power play were 1-for-1 for Vegas, and Sharks were actually 2-for-2. So special teams was good on both sides, offensively at least. And yeah, the hits were 28-25 for San Jose. Vegas would block 19 shots to the Sharks 15. Vegas gave away the puck 14 times, but the Sharks only 10 times. So that's one positive for the Sharks. And the takers would be 5-4. So in the end, this is the end of the head-to-head between the Sharks and Vegas. Unfortunately, they only played 3 games this season, and Vegas sweeps the series 3-0 as they won 7-3 on October 26th, 6-3 a couple of weeks ago on December 27th, and they would win 4-2 in this last one. So Vegas obviously is a contender. They could win a cup again this year. Unfortunately, that would be pretty awful to see as Sharks fans, but they just completely had their way with the Sharks, as they do with the regular season since That 2019 reverse, the Game 7, reverse goal. Basically, the game they won. They were down. They ended up winning that big historic game. Sharks pretty much have had bad luck since that time, unfortunately. But yeah, Vegas is a contender. What can I say? At least we have to see them for the rest of the year until next season. All right, the next game would be the beginning of a back-to-back on Friday night. San Jose visiting Utah, and this one was a little bit chippy. You could see that these two teams are actually starting to grow some animosity between each other. With this one, there was a lot of just dirty plays, cheap shots there, a lot of frustration during parts of it. It was a defensive matchup, but I feel since the Sharks' comeback win when they were in the beginning in October between Utah and San Jose, when they were down by 3 goals, they ended up winning their first game of the season after a huge slump. I think this really kind of just started this rivalry between them. So it's actually a lot of fun, and hopefully the future between these two teams are going to be, just have this much emotion between them, because it just makes hockey better, right? So anyways, let's tear into this game specifically. Georgiev would be in now for 2 reasons. You could look at it. A, he had a good game against Vegas despite those 2 goals he allowed. But also, I think that the thought process is for Warsofsky is more, he wanted Askarov to be fresh to play against a better team in Minnesota on Saturday, because Askarov has been a little bit of a better goalie overall the last couple of weeks. So that's the reason I think Georgiev would actually be in, but it doesn't hurt the fact that he's kind of going in with the momentum he had against Vegas despite those first 2 goals. Like I said, he did have a good rest of the game, so that momentum did kind of carry into this game, fortunately. So yeah. And it actually did help the Sharks because the beginning of the game, Zetterlund would actually end up scoring. It was a great goal in the beginning. Ceci sees Granlund in the opposite hash marks and finds a seam between the Utah's defense. So there is a little bit of stuff going on in the middle of the Utah zone. Somehow Ceci finds Granlund, and Granlund causes chaos. Takes a shot on goal with a huge rebound, a juicy one for Zetterlund just to pick it in, and he ends up scoring that goal. It's 1-0 San Jose. So things are looking good in the beginning. But Liljegren going to the box a little bit later for cross-checking, and Utah is kind of sloppily passing the puck around, but somehow it makes it look dangerous. Like, they have a couple of good shots because of weird bounces here and there, but they didn't really get any chances to set up the puck or really make some clean passes. But either way, they got a couple good chances, but Georgiev would shut them down. Later in the game, the lung line would have a decent tic-tac-toe chance, but it was saved by Vejmelka. Later, San Jose would have some moments applying pressure in Utah's zone, but Utah is using their sticks effectively to stifle any good shots or passes by San Jose. San Jose is just mostly getting things to the outside. Later on, Michelli has a chance but hits the post, and Georgiev falls on the rebound. Somehow it stays out amid all the craziness going on around him. But later, unfortunately, Schmalz would end up scoring, and basically what happened was Sharks were on the ice. They were tired from being out there for over a minute. That line was out there for, I don't know how long, but maybe around almost 2 minutes. Schmalz takes advantage of this. He has the puck. He kind of skates around the outside. He uses his speed to circle around the Sharks, and Toffoli and Cunnin both lose their man. Neither of them cover Schmalz, and they kind of look around, and Schmalz just has a pretty much open space to shoot it by Georgiev. He ties the game 1-1. After that, Celebrini gets his pocket picked off the Utah blue line, and it's a 2-on-1 from Utah. But Ceci tries to disrupt the pass. He tries to fall down to blank it over, but then there was a sauce pass that went over him through that one time. It ended up being a one-time shot, but Georgiev would stop it. Later on in the game, there would be a disallowed goal, which would help bail the Sharks out for a bit. Keller would have a chance to... he ends up scoring the goal, but it would be called off. Basically, it was a sloppy giveaway by Ruda. He tried to skate the puck out of the zone. He gets his pocket picked. Somehow, Keller gets a breakaway. Georgiev makes the save, but the damage is done. Utah has possession and is cycling inside the Sharks' zone during this time. And then Keller finds a way, bombs it from the point amid all the chaos. And then San Jose challenges for interference as Schmalz kind of touches Georgiev a bit. And after all that, there would be no goal. The Sharks get bailed out for a bit. But unfortunately, later in the game, Caton would make it 2-1 with 1 minute and 32 seconds left. So the Sharks end up kind of choking at the end, despite holding on and despite Georgiev shutting the door down as best as they could. The Sharks could not make anything of it. They're collapsed too much in front of Georgiev. Again, this is why I find a lot happens. The Sharks not covering the point guys, giving the opponents too much space to skate around them. So no one's covering Utah's points guys. And there's 3 guys from the point, and there's one guy in the high slot that no Sharks covering, and that's Hayton, who ends up getting a little bit of time to skate around and snipes it past Georgiev, making it 2-1. So, near the end of the game, things are getting chippy, and Steinlen tries to stick lift Eklund, but hits all face. Eklund is bleeding, and it ends up being a 4-minute power play for San Jose. There was a little bit of a stoppage there. Blood was all over the ice, but Eklund is a freaking warrior. You would not see it because despite his size, you think he's just a soft sweep, but this guy, he does not give up. So he ends up getting patched up in the game. He wants to go out for the Sharks power play there, but apparently there's a rule that if there's stoppage in play and you go down on the ice and you're the one who's injured, you can't go off. You can't go in the next shift, basically. You have to stay on the next shift. So during the power play, Eklund would stay out during the first faceoff, but he's allowed to get on after that. I believe Smith kind of makes a mistake. He kind of is the replacement for Eklund during the first power play, and he makes a small mistake there. So switching up was a good thing after the whistle. It was kind of a quick thing, so luckily he would get back on there. But in the final seconds, the Sharks don't really make much with the power play. McBain would hit Celebrini, and the team is not happy about that. There was a huge scrum in the dying seconds. It was a very dirty play. Nothing happens out of that. The game ends. Sharks don't get a chance to get revenge. It's the last game between them for the season. They lose 2-1. Utah takes the season series 2-1 as well. And like I said, there seems to be a rivalry brewing because the way the game ended, a lot of heat between everybody. You can tell they really, really just don't like each other right now. And like I said, unfortunately, there's not going to be any more games to get this to brew more. We'll have to see what happens next season. But despite that, the Sharks lose another 2 points for Utah. And yeah, they would outshoot the Sharks 26-19. They had slightly better the faceoff zone by 53% to 46%. No one got power play goals. The Sharks were 0-2 and Utah was 0-1. Utah out-hit the Sharks 23-21. Sharks had way more block shots, 22-10. The giveaways were even 15-15. And yeah, that was pretty much the game there. A nice defensive game. Sharks not really finding a way to score goals there. The Utah is really good at using their sticks and just keeping the Sharks to the outside. And unfortunately, the Sharks would come away with another loss of the week. All right, and the final game of the week would be Minnesota visiting the San Jose Sharks. So the Sharks having to travel from Utah to San Jose in one night, and the Sharks would start Askarov in this game. Obviously, you're expecting the hotter goalie to play on the Minnesota Wild, who were a hotter team this last little while. Despite not having Kaprizov for the last 5 games, Minnesota has won most of those, and we see why. They don't need a lot of goals to score games. They still have a very structured defensive style of play, although they also had great goaltending from Fleury in this game. So, also another thing to note in this game, Wallman, and Grundstrom are all back from IR, which is a huge win for the Sharks because, Wallman is their best defenseman. They need him for all situations on the ice. Defensively, power play, penalty kill. He even gets the offense going as well. Big win for the Sharks to get him back. And Sturm and Grundstrom, I find that they round out that nice fourth line. Sturm is an underrated kind of fourth line center. He just does everything right. He makes some mistakes, but just for what he is, he's not bad. And honestly, Grundstrom, for what all his warts and stuff too, he still is a very useful fourth line guy. He's an energy guy. He still brings a lot to that line, so it's nice to have them both back, and it kind of evens out the other lines too. It kind of rounds them out to everyone's kind of playing where they should be playing, which is nice to see. So in the beginning of the game, Celebrini and Toffoli get a couple of good looks at Fleury early on. Toffoli can't get a handle on the puck for a potential open net backdoor goal, so it remained 0-0 for a bit, but the Sharks did have a nice momentum in the beginning. Unfortunately, Rossi would score a little bit later. Ruta was up way too high. He had the offensive zone in the Minnesota zone. The puck pops back behind him. Zuccarello ends up getting the puck, and Eklund can't catch Rossi at all. So Zuccarello, finds Rossi way far back door, and Thrun tries to kind of cover Zuccarello, but instead of he doesn't know if he should actually take the body or use a stick. What happens is Thrun is thinking there's going to be a 2-on-1. He doesn't really think that Eklund's going to be able to catch up, and he is right. But Thrun is too far away from Rossi anyway. He's looking at Zuccarello who has the puck. Thrun should have tried to been more aggressive, try to attack him to make Zuccarello force a mistake or force a pass so it's not as clean of a pass. Instead, he gives Zuccarello all the time to make a nice sauce pass all the way to Rossi, who Rossi has like an easy backdoor goal. And Eklund just needs to be better as well. He can't catch up to Rossi. For someone who's that fast, he should be able to turn around and do something to stop him. But unfortunately, he falls to the ground, and then this goal just looks like really, really sloppy. So, honestly, this whole goal, you could give it to Eklund, Thrun, and you could also give it to Ruda, who was pinching way too high and no reason to be up there and screws up everything. So, just a really sloppy play all around. yeah, so later the Sharks get a power play, and they get a couple of good looks, but they never really get a good setup to get a good shot. They kind of fumbled into some scoring chances, but Fleury does rob everything basically the Sharks throw at him. Minnesota keeping the San Jose shots in front on the outside, and Fleury is making acrobatic saves and making them look even more amazing than they should be. Wallman and Granlund did have a couple of shots from the outside, but Fleury just making some crazy things. Goudreau had a nice between-the-legs play to try and fool the Sharks' defense. He get a backhand shot on Askarov, but Askarov shuts him down. Smith can't handle Wallman's soft pass in the neutral zone. He loses the puck and it finds a way to Boldy, who rips it past Askarov. Thrun is screening Askarov as well, so now it's 2-0 Minnesota. And later, Celebrini had a decent shot from the outside, but it was shaved by Fleury. If you see, there's like this pattern here. The Sharks are keeping on getting shots, but they can't get shots anywhere close to Fleury. They're all on the outside. So despite the fact the Sharks are getting more shots on net, they're not really high danger chances versus Minnesota is really taking advantage of their chances. Well, they are few and far between. There are higher danger chances. So Askarov made some sweet split saves on Rossi later in the game. Askarov is just such an acrobatic goalie. You just see him. He really does like to go low and do some crazy saves and bait the shooters as well to think they have some net and then completely take it away. That's what I really notice he likes to do. Later, Toffoli has a one-time pass to Celebrini, but it's stopped by Fleury. And later Eklund would score again. He's got back-to-back goals now. It was from a lightning fast play. Eklund passes Celebrini, almost like a give and go, but Celebrini, instead of giving it back to Eklund, shoots it, and Eklund would pick up the rebound goal and score, so that would make it 2-1. And the Sharks are out shooting Minnesota 29-15 by the start of the third period. So it looks like things are going for San Jose's way, but honestly, the shot quality is not quite there. It just looks like it is. Rossi gets another breakaway on Askarov, but he's stopped. Wallman sneaks into the slot. Granlund shot from the outside, but Wallman tries to tap it in, and Fleury is sharp. He completely stops it. So what happens is Wallman tries to pinch. He ends up getting in front of the slot in front of Fleury, but Granlund could not really. It gets a good shot, but then Fleury just robs the tip pass, and Wallman gets a second chance out of there, but it gets saved as well. Askarov leaves the net, and at the end of the game, so it's 2-1. And Askarov leaves, but as he leaves, Celebrini tries to deke through four guys. He loses the puck. Zuccarello picks it up and scores from half. So at this point, it's 3-1, empty net goal. Despite the Sharks outshooting Minnesota Wild, they would lose 3-1. Rossi was probably the best player of the night. He was kind of everywhere against the Sharks. He was the backdoor passes. He was making crazy plays on the slot. Everything he did was working. Fleury was also incredible. Of course, this is probably Fleury's last game in the Shark Tank, like I mentioned at the beginning of the game. And honestly, what a way to say goodbye to his career, because as much as it sucks to see the Sharks lose, to see Fleury kind of go out like that is kind of cool to see, because he played like it was 2009 again. So Fleury and Rossi were the best players of the game, easy to say. Celebrini was showing some flaws these last few games, especially this game where he tries to do too much, and also even defensively, he's making more defensive mistakes. Again, it's the dog days of the season. These kinds of players that are young are not used to playing this many games, so I think it's part of that mental strain they have to get over and know how to bring it every night. So it could be just that. It could just be that Celebrini, being young, is given so many minutes, so much responsibility because of his skill that maybe he's just getting tired. It's the first season. And one thing that I do hear about a lot during the NHL is the first summer off season. So that's after the Sharks have a rookie, or any NHL player has a rookie year. That first summer is such an important summer that the player kind of figures out what they need to do to become NHL level competitive in terms of their off-ice routine, their workouts, their diet, all that stuff is kind of nailed in after the first season in the summer, because they have all that time to kind of figure it out, and that way they get into the next season, they're a little bit more, physically fit, mentally fit, everything like that. So I think this could just be one of those mid-season kind of slumps for a rookie that he's still kind of figuring out this is what it takes to play in the NHL. So all that's to say that I don't really worry about Celebrini per se. So this is just something that we should kind of note, that he's kind of in a slump a little bit right now, offensively and defensively, but he will get over it. I'm very sure of it. So at the end of the game, the Sharks outshoot Minnesota 37-22. Askarov, he was pretty good overall. He did let in those goals, but I wouldn't say all of them were really his fault. Fleury was just dynamite. Also, the Minnesota really good at keeping the Sharks on the outside, low danger shoot chances. In terms of the power play, the Sharks were 0 for 2 on the power play, and Minnesota gets no power play. So Sharks were very disciplined in this game. It was a very low penalties. This game actually went by very fast. There was very few whistles too, especially in the second period. I noticed that this game kept really going. It was one of those quicker games. So the hits, Minnesota out-hit the Sharks 20-18. Block shots were also for Minnesota 17-14. Minnesota also coughed the puck up more 17-12. So, overall, the Sharks, not that great an effort. They should have found ways to score in this one. They didn't, and in the end, they end up losing again. The season series, Minnesota leads 2-0 as they won on November 7th, and now they won this one, and they will have another game, even though they pretty much win the series. For the season, the Sharks will have a grudge match against Minnesota on April 9th in Minnesota, so they have a few months to kind of figure things out before then. By then, Minnesota is probably going to be either well on their way towards the playoffs, or they may fall between them, so we'll have to see. So that's it. That's the games for the week, and now we're going to go into the stories of the week. All right, so it's hard to believe that Graf has almost been in the Sharks organization for a year now. So I kind of just wanted to take a look and see how Graf has been doing this season for the Sharks. We know that he has been tearing it up for the Barracuda. He was the leading scorer for most of the season up until Podorowski kind of took over for him, and now that he's been playing for the Sharks for a little bit, obviously Podorowski's completely taken over. But just before he was up a point a game. He did go on a little bit of a cold streak there, where now he has, in 29 games for the Barracuda, he has 6 goals, 20 assists for 26 points. And he's a +5, so he's still doing very well for the Barracuda, which is why he would get the call-up for the San Jose Sharks. So just to compare how he played last year to this year, last season when he signed with the Sharks and he played a little bit near the end of the season, in 7 games he had 2 assists, 2 points. He was a -4, and his time on ice was 16 minutes. This is why I want to kind of point out that's interesting, because this season his time on ice actually decreased a bit, despite playing on a couple of scoring lines with Celebrini here. So from 16 minutes last season, he's gone down 16 minutes and 36 seconds to 14 minutes and 15 seconds this season, which is a little bit significant considering his higher ice time. But in this season, in the 5 games he's played, he has the same amount of assists, 2 assists. He does not have his first NHL goal. We're waiting eagerly to see that. In terms of just some advanced stats we've seen here, his expected goals is actually lower than they were last season, probably because just of the time on ice. So he was 0.7 expected goals in 2023 versus 0.2 this season. He just seems a little bit snake bit. He has a couple of good chances, and honestly, the assists he scored were very nice. Like that one bumper goal was very, very nice. Unfortunately, he doesn't make much of that one. Defensively, he's not really great there. He's just there. He has blocked a few shots this season. He's blocked 4 in the 5 games, and he actually blocked 7 last season. Defensively, too, he's got 2 takeaways this season versus 5 last season. Giveaways are about the same, 1 for 1, so he's not giving away too many things there, which is not too bad. So Colin Graf is... Overall, he's not playing terribly. He just has those rookie mistakes. He's making some things here and there. Positionally, he knows what to do. His skill is clearly there. So I'm not too worried about that. I think that once the Sharks kind of come back to full strength, he's probably going to go back down, and maybe we'll bring another guy up just to see what they can do. Graf having this experience hopefully will bring him to score more points for the Barracuda, and we hope that maybe he can actually lead them to a Calder Cup, because this team has potential to do that. In terms of the NHL, I don't see him sticking around for the rest of the time. I feel this is just kind of like giving him a few games like they did with Gushchin, like they did with Cardwell. They just want to see what he has, and then gives him that confidence when he goes back down. But as of right now, I would say that he's nothing that stops him short of anything great. His offense is not fully there yet. We haven't seen any goals yet. But overall this season, I would say Graf is pretty good. Like, there's some potential there, but we'll have to see. As it's not just Graf that's having trouble scoring for the Sharks, the whole team themselves have been pretty much snake-bitten goals scored. As we know, the Sharks this season have not been very good in terms of getting goals at all. Their goals for this season have been 114 goals for versus 158 goals against, so their differential is -44. They have been really snake-bit when it comes to scoring pretty much the whole season, but I wanted to see if it's the worst it's been all year. And To be fair, I have confirmed that it has been. What I did was I've broken down how many goals that the Sharks have scored on average each week since the beginning of the season. And despite the fact that the Sharks had a really tough first few weeks when they couldn't even get a win for the first 10 games of the season, they still were scoring at a better output. The first week, they were actually an average 2 goals per game, and the second week, they were 2.3 goals per game. So in the third week, they actually did drop to 1.75, but they have not been as low as they have been over the past couple of weeks. So this past week, they're actually at 1.3 goals per game, and the week where they actually won, they lost to Philadelphia and got shut out, but they won the next 2 games and started the new year strong. They're actually only at 1 goal per week. So defense and Askarov's goaltending has been what held them for those 2 wins, and this week it was really more Gorgiev that's been holding them to the not looking like you're getting blown out. But unfortunately, they can't score goals. That's basically the biggest problem there. But surprisingly, despite all of that, the Sharks have only been shut out twice this season. The first one was actually against Anaheim on October 12th. They'd lost 2-0, and then the Philly game on December 31st. So despite the fact that the Sharks can't score, they are scoring at least a goal a game, which is kind of impressive, to be honest. But this has been their worst output. The other time they have scored kind of at a similar rate was in December 3rd to December 7th, where they were also at 1.3 goals per game. But other than that, they were scoring at least more than 2 goals a game every other time, which is something you hope to see because you want the Sharks to be, you win games by scoring goals, right? That's the whole point of hockey. You have to outscore your opponent to win the game. But yeah, their best offensive week was on between November 25th and 30th. They're actually at 5.5 goals per week. But after that, it pretty much dropped after that. Their best week after that would have been December 10th, but the 14th that week, and they scored 3 goals that week on average. So yeah, the Sharks kind of need to figure it out. The last few games, the Sharks just couldn't find a way to get to the inside. They take a lot of weak shots on the outside. Despite the fact they have a lot of talent, they can't really consistently find ways to score goals. They are electric some games, but when the confidence really gets them, I really think that they have trouble scoring. And now with this road trip coming up in this next week ahead, it might be a little bit tougher because I feel like the Sharks are kind of really tired right now. They've traveled a lot this season. They've had a lot of weeks. They played 4 games a week. So I think that's kind of wearing at them right now. I think this break that's coming up for the All-Star game and for the 4 Nations tournament, I think that this is something the Sharks are really going to need to recharge. Fortunately, not a lot of players are going to be playing in that tournament. I think that they're going to be able to kind of come back and maybe have a better rest of the season. But right now, you can really tell they're fatigued. They're not figuring things out. And yeah, they're kind of having to rely on their goaltending, which is not going to be very good on the long run. The Sharks are better when they're offensive, when they're clicking and they're really pushing the other teams and trying to score goals. And you just haven't seen that over the last little while. Their confidence has really dipped. So hopefully they can kind of figure that out. This has been the worst couple of weeks, but, either it could get a lot worse or it could get a lot better. I honestly can't predict right now. This team is really hard to predict as they seem to beat the tough teams, but they seem to lose against the not so tough teams. So I really don't know what to say for that. So the Sharks, that's basically it for the Sharks scoring woes. Hopefully they'll figure it out sooner than later and get through this because there's a lot of season left and we're getting into the dog days of the season. The Barracuda are also in their own dog days of the season too, as they have had trouble kind of stringing a bunch of wins together over the last little while. Despite their hot start to the year, they've kind of had a lot more ups and downs throughout the rest of the season. This week, though, they had a pretty good week. They were 2-1. They beat the Colorado Eagles 4-3, and then the Bakersfield Condors 5-2. But they did lose yesterday 5-4 in overtime against Bakersfield. So the Barracuda at least are on the up. They still managed to stay second place in the Pacific Division. No one's catching up to the Calgary Wranglers, I don't think. But yeah, the Barracuda are 20 wins, 11 losses for 43 points in 38 games. They're looking a lot better, a little bit more put together. Goaltending is what they're missing right now. That's what they really do miss Askarov since he's been called up. But yeah, Podorowski completely just lighting this team up as well. He is 36 points in 34 games. The Patrick Kane of the AHL, I call him. He's the only guy with more than 10 goals for the Barracuda this season so far with 15. He's got 21 assists. The only person who has 20 or more assists is Colin Graf, who is up with the Barracuda or up with the Sharks right now, so he's not going to be able to catch up to Podorowski for a little bit. And Luca Cagnoni rounds out the top 3 with 22 points in 34 games. So this team is kind of better at scoring right now than getting goals against them right now. But yeah, their goaltending is one thing that they really got to figure out. They did have a good defensive game against the Bakersfield Condors when they won 5-2, but it looks like they really are missing Askarov. And once Vanacek comes back, I do think Askarov will be called back down again, and we'll see maybe the Barracuda come play more confidently this time and get some more wins together. But like I said, all I'm really waiting for is the playoffs. The Barracuda are going to be in those playoffs, and I'm looking forward to that Wranglers-Barracuda match this offseason. All right, now time for the scheduled win-loss segment. So this is where I'll just take the Sharks' schedule coming up and see if they're going to win or lose each game and how many points they should come away with. Last week, I was completely wrong. They lost all 3 of their games. I did have a feeling they were going to lose a couple of games, but I didn't think they were going to lose that many. I mean, they did play against really good teams with Minnesota and Vegas, and even Utah, not being a cup contending team, they are still in the hunt for that playoff spot, so they're not someone you could take lightly. But the Sharks, despite that, losing all 3 of those games, they did look okay, mostly from the goaltending, but unfortunately they lost all 3. And this one, they're going to be on a 5-game road trip. They're starting it this week. On Tuesday, it's going to start in Detroit at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Detroit right now, you would think they were a bottom-feeding team at the end of the season, but they're actually on a very good hot streak right now, so I would not underestimate Detroit. They've won the last 6 games. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games. Their power play is actually clicking right now. They're 3rd in the league at 27.3%. Their penalty kill is not so good, so the Sharks can maybe try and draw some penalties. They are 31st in the league at 69.4%, where the Sharks are 22nd, with 78.3%. So the Sharks might have to try and draw some penalties for Detroit to try and see if maybe they can get some goals, power play goals that way, but also avoid getting into the box because Detroit will take advantage of that. Their top scorers are Lucas Raymond with 44 points in 41 games, Dylan Larkin with 35 points in 41 games, and they both have 17 goals. Alex DeBrincat edges them both with 18 goals in the season with 35 points in 41 games. Patrick Kane, the old wonder, still managing to still get some points. He's got 25 points in 36 games, 4th place in scoring for Detroit. And Moritz Seider rounds out the top 5 with 24 points in 41 games. Not quite. He's not as good as he was during his rookie season, but he's still a very effective defenseman, very much needed. This game, the Sharks won the last game 5-4. This game will actually be the last one of the season between these two teams, and yeah, it's in Detroit. We'll see if the Sharks manage to win this one. I think the Sharks will probably. It's hard to say. Don't really think they're probably going to win. I just have the lack of confidence with the lack of scoring, but maybe the Sharks do turn it around and kind of upset Detroit, because it's one of those games where hockey, you feel like it's Detroit's on a hot streak. The Sharks are not doing so well. I feel like the Sharks should maybe upset Detroit, so I'm going to say the Sharks will win this one in overtime. And with the next game, it'll be Columbus on Thursday, same time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The Sharks are in Columbus, and this is another one where the Sharks lead the series 1-0, where they played November 5th. Sharks won 2-1 that game. So this will end the series between these two, and the Columbus has a chance to make it, at least to tie this season series and make this kind of respectable in their own home ice. Now, Columbus is actually on their hot streak of their own. They've actually won 5 of the last 6 games. And actually, they're 7-2-1 in the last 10 games. So Columbus is actually coming in hot. And the biggest surprise for me is they actually have 3 guys that are over a point a game. And their top scorer is actually a defenseman. Zach Werenski has 48 points in 43 games. This is his coming out party this season. I'm feeling like he was always on an upward trajectory. But the fact that he's leading the team in scoring, he's actually this good, is really unbelievable to see. He has 19 power play points, so about just a little bit less than half of his points, actually a lot less than half of his points are actually on the power play, so he's a good all-around point getter. He can get them on the power play. He can get him 5-on-5. He's just that good all around. Second place is Kirill Marchenko, the other Kirill no one talks about. 47 points in 43 games. He has the most goals for the team with 18 goals. And he is, again, over a point a game very well. There's another young kid just showing some of this young blood that's coming in for Columbus that actually might be able to turn this franchise around in a few years. Who knows? But yeah, he's looking good. Third place, Sean Monahan, 41 points in 41 games, and even 100 for the season. 14 goals, 27 assists. Great veteran, God rest his soul. Johnny Gaudreau, his best friend, he's kind of playing for him. Just trying to do what he can to make this team good. And yeah, he's helping them out with his points there. Fourth place is Dmitry Voronkov. He has 30 points in 34 games. another young guy, young blood, trying to make make this team's future looking good. And yeah, so he's got 30 points. He's looking okay. Kent Johnson rounds out the top 5 with 24 points in 21 games, 11 goals, 13 assists. Decent there, but it's the top 3 guys that are the ones you have to worry about. Werenski, Marchenko, and Monahan. That's the only thing the Sharks will have to worry about, their high-powered offense. That's the type of game you want to throw Askarov at them, and we'll see who Warsofsky puts against them. But yeah, with the way the Blue Jackets are playing, the Sharks are really going to have to be prepared. The fact that they're 2-7-1 in their last 10. I predict the Sharks are going to lose this game just because if they beat Detroit, they're going to have that even out, kind of lose to another team. I've not been very good this whole season predicting these things. This is like a 50-50 toss-up. As good as Columbus is, I do think the Sharks are capable of beating them, but I think Columbus is going to win this one. So yeah, I'm going to give that one to Columbus. So Saturday is the last game of the week. It's also another away game for the Sharks. Obviously, they'll be in their third game of their 5-game road streak, basically. And this would be the beginning of a season series between the Sharks and the Islanders. So yeah, the Sharks will be visiting the Islanders, and they'll see each other again on March 8th in San Jose. The Islanders are kind of having a weird season themselves because they started off pretty bad. I don't know if people were expecting them to do anything really, but they were a lot worse than people expected. Lou Lamoriello hasn't really, added any youth. He's still stubbornly stuck with what he thinks works with the types of players he has. And looking at that, Anders Lee is leading the team in points with 35 and 42. He also has the most goals with 19 goals. Bor Horvat's second place with 30 points in 41 games. Palmieri, it's hard to believe he's still in the league, to be honest. He feels like he's been there forever. But he's 27 points in 42 games. Fourth place is Brock Nelson, who's actually one of the trade bait rumors going around right now where he could go somewhere else. He's got 25 points in 42 games. And around that top 5, Simon Holmstrom has 22 points in 37 games. So I think that the Sharks are capable of winning. However, the Islanders are on a 3-game winning streak right now. Who knows what they'll be at the end of the week when they face the Sharks. But they are 5-5 overall, so the Sharks might be able to find some way to break through there. One thing the New York Islanders are not good at is the power play. They're 10.6% on the power play. The Sharks shouldn't be afraid of making dumb penalties, as they'll be able to probably take advantage of that. Also, on the penalty kill, they're 65.2%. So if the Sharks manage to get some power plays, they have a good chance to score against the New York Islanders. I think special teams will be the one that decides this game. So I'm going to say the Sharks will manage to win it, as they are pretty good at drawing penalties. And when it comes to the penalty kill, they're not too bad being 22nd place, but they are capable of holding their own. So I think the Sharks are going to win this one. So the Sharks might be able to turn this week around, going 2-1-0, and that's my prediction for the week. The Sharks are going to come away with 4 points and continue the next week strong to finish off their road trip when they take on a couple of other teams. I think it's going to be the Boston Bruins and Nashville Predators on Monday and Tuesday the next week. So we'll have to see how that goes. All right, that's going to do it for me for another episode of the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. I want to thank you all for listening wherever you are and whatever you're listening from. I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me rant about the San Jose Sharks, because that's what I love to do. You can check out wherever I am, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm on Instagram at Teal Teardown Hockey. I'm also on X at Teal Teardown HKY. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it be Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anywhere I'm there, just look for Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. I'll be there, and I will talk to you again next week.